You are live.
Down off exit 18.
Yeah.
We have there. That's a really nice part.
Okay, yeah, that's
Exit
fine.
18.
You're live.
Thank you.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Take my grandson down there.
Yeah.
Good morning. Welcome to the
Well,
February 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Warren County Facilities Committee meeting. We're going to begin this morning's meeting with the Fire Prevention and Building and Code Enforcement agenda. I guess we could start actually by approving the minutes from the previous committee meeting. Mr. Conover on the first, Mr. Stroh on the second. Any discussion, any comments? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you. All right. Any privilege of the floor, any public comment? No, all right, we'll move along. Yeah, Mr. Wallace with us, thank you. And I will let him. I'll let him speak. We have under action agenda, new business item, a request to fill a vacant position, code enforcement officer number 1, which is included with the agenda, the job description, etc. Mr. Wallace.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, that's the only item I really have under today is just because of a retirement, just looking to fill the vacant position. That individual last day was the 15th of February. So,
Right, so we're actually a little behind the 8 ball. We'll talk about that later because in order to have this person active, correct me if I'm wrong, unless he or she is already certified, they'll have to go through a fairly lengthy process, about 6 months.
roughly 6 months, yes. Typically, they offer 1 codes class a month for a total of 6. And, I guess hypothetically, if we had a new person in here, we'll say end of April, probably looking at October before they're really fully certified, unless they were already, certified prior to coming here. So they could do fire safety after 3 months, but in order to issue a permit or do building inspections, you're looking at October.
Right. Do we have any applicants on file, so to speak?
There is actually still a list. However, it's not a list that I'm required to hire off of because it only has 2 people on it. It does expire, I think, in August. Trish told me. And we're probably going to look to advertise and see if we can't get some more candidates. I will at least interview the 2 people that are on the list. But also, I think it'll give us a good idea of interest moving forward. I'm now kind of morph into the referrals pending section.
Yeah, go right ahead, because it's all tied together.
Yeah, I mean, look, it appears right now, I have a pretty definite next January, another person leaving, because of retirement age. So we're going to basically run shorthanded most of this year, turn around and repeat that process all over again next year. And then ideally, probably somewhere between end of 25, early 26, you potentially have 3 more people that are looking to go. So as we talked about, I think last October, we're looking at almost a full turnover of the office within a few years. So that's kind of what that meeting was, when I brought that up last year. Right.
And I, the acting county administrator, someone from HR, the head of HR, whatever, were supposed to get together to discuss a plan so that to move forward so that we're not caught short-handed.
Right.
Obviously, there needs to be some overlap. We're going to need to ideally or practically need to hire some people, get their training so they can be ready to go the day someone retires.
Right.
So we'll have to have that discussion soon, within the next few weeks. So I'll talk with county administrator and we'll try to set something up for March.
Okay.
Um,
So yeah, I mean, basically we'll run short staffed most of this year. I don't want to say all. But and then turn around, run short staff the majority of next year as well. And then the cycle is just because of ages. It's just going to continue on. It seems
Sure.
like as of right now, nothing obviously is set in stone, but that's what it seems is to
Yeah.
me.
Okay, very good. Any discussion? We don't have a motion yet, but Mr. McGowan, Supervisor
Oh, yeah,
McGowan.
Charlie, thank you. This almost sounds like a deja vu. I thought we've talked about this and I thought we were gonna get someone in, or did we get someone in there and then we had another retirement? I can't remember everything. But I know you've been overworked coming out of the pandemic and that concerns me. And is there anybody we might be able to firing that that has retired, or we can talk to anybody that maybe bring someone in as a per diem to help you out, because you're coming into your busy season. As soon as that snow, they can put the shovels in the ground. I know you're going to be slamming, and I don't want you burning out on us.
Well, what I foresee happening, at least in my head, I have priorities of what has to happen. And my priority has always been to issue permits, do building inspections, keep people working, keep that processing going, because there's a really big trickle down right down to suppliers. I know there are a lot of code offices that I hear horror stories of 6 and 8 months to get a deck permit, in other parts of the state. And we try diligently to be less than 2 weeks all the time. So that's priority right down to the building end of it. Where the lag will be is in fire safety inspections. That's like bottom of the list, so to speak. And this time of year, it's fine. And I don't perceive a huge problem with the building end of it, even this year. But what will lag is the fire safety portion of it.
Well, Queensbury just had didn't one of our fire marshals there, John, just retire?
Going to retire.
Oh, he's going to retire. Maybe we can share a little number, because sometimes when they retire like that, they have a little, maybe they can transition and help out the county if that's possible. I'm just shooting things out there because I know after the pandemic and we've had some shortages over in your department. I'm more concerned about you and keeping everybody up. But if you feel comfortable, I'm behind whatever you have to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be fine on the building end.
Okay.
Because during COVID, I did what I had to do and there was no lag. But the fire safety end is probably what we'll have to. There just doesn't enough hours in the day on
I
it.
think we'll have a better handle on all this after we meet with the county administrator, myself, you, and someone from HR. We'll develop a plan and we'll discuss with you what your priorities are, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Anyone else? So we need a motion regarding the Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Stroud, regarding the request to fill a vacant position, code enforcement officer number 1. Any discussion?
Is there, we had talked one time in manufacturing, they have a labor pool. In order to fill the positions in manufacturing, there's people who work multiple jobs. We talked about it in certain areas where you have different classifications in a department that's bigger, where you bring on a couple of extra people and train them around the department. So when you get, say, if it's in accounting, if you get a senior accountant or a junior accountant, the person could fill in. And yes, does it add head count? Sure does. But will it help things like You know, if you've got to wait 6 months to train somebody, you've got to have the staff available to be able to do this, because we do serve the public. We're a service. You know, we're not making widgets. We're serving the public. So I've brought it up before. I still think it's a good idea to have 1 or 2 people. You know, some require more professional knowledge than others, but I still think it's something we should really, when we see retirements on the horizon, we should start training 6 months to 9 months ahead to have somebody in that department that will be able to fill in if you can. Now, yeah, it's headcount. I get that. You'll add headcount, but you can utilize the person maybe in 1 or 2 different departments, especially when you have like, well, DPW, for instance. You know, you can have a labor pool in DPW, but have them make sure that they have their CDL or this and that. So if you need to fill in a department, you can do that. And that's the only way you survive in manufacturing, by having a labor pool. And I think the county, especially because of our policies and procedures, you know, we post. Takes you a while to post, and then they have to, sometimes they have to take a test, not all the time they have to take a test, but I think because we serve the public, we've got to be ready to serve the public. That's, and it's going to take some creativity to figure it out, but we all start looking, because like Charlie said, he's got 3 or 4 people going to age out.
That's the objective of this meeting,
Okay.
is to plan so that we have people in the quote pipeline, so that we don't get caught, like say we are now. We have this, you know, code enforcement officer number 1. We don't have anybody ready to go in there. That's what we will address at the meeting. Well, you know,
I
we
really
wanna-
think it's time. We've got to make sure that happens.
right, especially with, you know, well, I say especially any of the departments, but here where people are wanting to build houses, doors, what have you, you don't have the staff available to review those applications for building permit and go out and look and that sort of thing, authorized people, certified people, then we're doing a disservice to the people we serve. Thank you for that, Chairman. Any other comments? Not, I'll call a question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So be it. Anything else? Do you want to continue?
That-
or-
That's really all I had. I
All right,
will
so-
thank you, and I will contact Trish and get the process underway, and we'll go from there.
All right, and we definitely will. Seriously,
Yeah.
we'll meet within the next week or 2.
Okay, I'm gonna be curious to see what kind of feedback we actually get as far as applications. You know, just the whole
Yeah,
enforcement part of the job. It's going to be interesting, because certainly other enforcement agencies have a real problem recruiting help. So I'm gonna be curious to see what actually rolls back in here.
sure. Right, I agree.
Another quick question is the city of Glens Falls able to help us out in anywhere, you know, really for the fire end? If that was taken off your plate, if we can possibly do some Queensbury and Glens Falls, you know, as a per diem, if possible, we can do that. You know, I'm just, you don't want to fall too far behind on that, you know?
I would suspect, and I don't know the internal makeups of the city of Glens Falls, but I'm just guessing with the time and difficulties that they were short-staffed, that I'm suspecting they probably would rather take our help than give us help. That's just a guess, but
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in a pinch, so we'll work on it. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Have a nice day. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. I'll be in touch. All right, next, airport agenda. And what do we have here? We don't have any action agenda, new business items. We do have a couple of discussion items.
Rob's gonna take the first one.
Mr. Mapp,
So I'll take a quick one, the solar farm update. So I have semi-good news. We got feedback from the FAA regarding the northern site determination. We received a condition, no objection, letter from the FAA. So basically, they have absolutely no restrictions for that site. However, there were 3 points that were identified in that page I had that were penetrating the primary surface. Unfortunately, it's not best practice for the industry to have construction in your primary surface. On the second page, if you want to flip over quickly, those 3 points closest to the runway are within the 500 feet for the primary surface. So again, we've requested a developer just to remove the 3 most eastern panels for that solar farm site to get out the primary surface, and then they get to go ahead. So this is just an example of the process. The FAA issues their determination, but we've exceeded their determination with our own internal safety measures, just as a quick guideline of how we proceed in terms of that process. Any questions with that before I move on?
Excuse me.
Yeah, he runs the meeting.
So this will be modified by the developer.
That's correct.
No problem there.
We've got a green light to move ahead. We will install a red obstruction light for the site.
And this is for the northern side only. We'll have the southern side to be addressed.
For that, sure.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
questions on this northern site before I?
Yeah, I'm just confused of, here we are. This has taken 2 years to get to this point, and then all of a sudden, we're in design. This is, to me, I just don't understand this, but, does that affect our contract?
So
Superintendent Hadros.
this doesn't affect our contract. They had in the contract I'm not sure I'm going to use the right term. They had a contingency kind of timeframe of like 1,000 days before they start or are up paying us $130,000 or whatever it may be per year. They pay right now currently $170,000 or $170 a month. And that's to go on until they finish construction. So no, it doesn't affect the contract with us. It doesn't affect their contract or their agreement that they have with National Grid. So everything is still moving forward.
All right, I'm just amazed that, we're just about ready to put the shovel in and get going, and all of a sudden, this seems to be an issue. I'm a little confused, but that's okay.
So
Yes, Supervisor Stroud.
kilowatts will be reduced accordingly.
Slightly, but I have not the numbers of reduction yet.
So Robin, this highlighted area, that's where
3 rows. So they only highlighted 2 rows, but they have to count the fence line. So they removed 3 rows to include the fence line.
very good. Anyone else?
Questions on the northern side?
No, if not,
So a quick update on the southern site. We finally began the process to get that determination started with the FAA. We got to update our ALP process and it's just got that approved. So we're now beginning the process to get a similar determination for that southern site. So we submitted several design alternatives just to make sure we have at least everything covered for that site. And that's, the northern site, the process plan is to get their process. It's going to take another 2 months to get finances in order, and then 2 to 3 months for construction to start. So they will be aiming at late fall for construction if all goes well for the northern side. And for the southern side, we started determination process, so we're hoping to get that process sped up as well.
Superintendent
I
Hadros.
just want to add on, and it's our discussions with Next Amp is, although they can start construction sometime this fall, probably on the northern site, they're most likely going to wait to get the determination because they don't want to come and construct, go away, and then come back. So my assumptions right now, based on discussions with Next Amp, is they'll shoot for fall, but most likely spring of 24, they will be under complete construction for both sites.
So they only have one mobilization.
Correct.
Anyone else? Anyone else, Mr. Mapp?
That's it.
I'll turn it back over to Robin in a minute. So as you all are aware, and since I took over as superintendent, I've been trying to look for ways to improve the airport, provide more of a revenue to the airport, cut down on the kind of the deficit that we've had out there, and we've done a significant amount. When I took over, we were at probably $800,000 a year in the red. And I think we're now somewhere about that $200,000 range. So we've done quite a bit in the last 5 years. Robin and I have always talked about looking at other properties around the site that are airport properties outside the fence that we could use. I know we've talked with the EDC and Jim Siflon a little bit about this. One of the other things we talked about is, can we do anything to provide a kind of a short-term like revenue by bringing something to the airport. The Balloon Fest, as you all know, is a big attraction to the airport. One of the things that I had talked to one of my counterparts out in Monroe County, Monroe? Yeah, I think it was Monroe County. They have a air show that they have out there every year. So I was asking Robin to reach out to see if we could possibly do an air show at our airport. This would not be like a Balloon Fest. There'd be no parking on the airport whatsoever. There's a lot of things that have to fall into place, but we've kind of started at least the investigation as to what we can do. And in a moment, Robin's going to introduce a gentleman. I'm going to hand out these pamphlets, but we're hoping, maybe by 2025 that we could bring an air show to Warren County Airport. And with that, Robin, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So again, once we began this process, I reached out to some of my contacts at the FAA. One of them over on the West Coast is familiar with the company that we were looking for that offers a one-stop shop for air shows. So they handle the entire production process. This recommendation came from their experience with San Francisco Fleet Week. So this is the same company that handles San Francisco Fleet Week. And anyone's familiar with that air show, it's a very big event over on that coast. From my multiple conversations over the past weeks and months with Jim, I'm impressed with what product what they offer, and I'm confident enough to at least bring it to your attention that we can safely and successfully have an air show with the assistance of Jim Breen and his team. So with that said, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Breen just to give you a quick background information on the company and what they do. Jim, can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning. It's early morning here in California, but that's all right. I'm good. Got me going today. It's a good thing. Well, Robin came as from a referral from an old friend of mine that we worked together with a long time ago. And a little background about our company. We are the largest promoter of air shows in North America. In fact, we're actually working on a show in Acapulco too. We've done shows in 46 states, 3 Canadian provinces, and I started the company in 1983. So we have kind of a solid team, solid background of experience. And when the opportunity came to work with you folks, we did some investigation and we got a lot of some heavy lifting to do to get things in place, because I think if you're going to do a show, you want to make sure that it's going to be dynamic and it's going to make sense for the community. And I think it could, because I think there's a lack of events of that magnitude in your part of the world, in New York State. And so I was intrigued by it. We have great relationships with the U.S. military, Blue Angels, Thunderbirds. But in order to accommodate one of those type of performances, we need to have an aerobatic box that's sterile for safety reasons. And we have a little challenge at your particular airport, because we have some houses that are in the aerobatic box, which would preclude us from having a major jet team. Seemingly, the community is pretty accommodating there, that we could make that work if the homeowners are cooperative with us. There's a two-year jet team schedule lead time. So if we applied in July of 23, it would be the first opportunity would be in 2025, which seems like kind of along the same timelines that you guys are thinking about. There's a possibility, and we do this all the time. If another show cancels, we have the capacity, because this is what we do for a living, to pick it up and take it to a place like you know, in your town. We've done that in Brunswick, Maine. We've done it in Melbourne, Florida. Major jet teams, Blue Angels primarily. And so the idea is that we would completely turnkey the operation. We would underwrite the operation and participate. The airport can participate once we get a reasonable return on our investment. And it's hard to identify that today because I'm not sure what our costs are going to look like. However, the only thing we would expect from the city or the county would be to provide the law enforcement and the fire and rescue, ARF, they call it, to support the event. Beyond that, we're not expecting anything from the county or the city. And as a result, we can, you know, it's a relatively risk-free alternative for you folks to bring in revenue to the county. I would estimate that we should get 20,000 people a day for this. It would generate significant tax revenues for the county. And it would also be a highlight for the airport itself, to bring more attention to the opportunity for development there or use of the airport. So we're kind of in our early stages. Nice to meet all of you today. And rest assured that I'm the president of the company, started the company. I have a direct interest in it. I used to vacation down in Saugerties, New York, when I was a kid. So I'm a little bit partial, and we're going to go to Niagara Falls in May. So New York State is I'm fond of that area, the Adirondacks, and so I think the opportunity could be great. New England is typically a really good air show market from people that really enjoy that type of entertainment. And so Robin and I are working with Ed, and we're trying to figure out how to make this all work, and we certainly will come up with a plan for you folks to consider. In the interim, I think that our timelines are such that we have FAA hurdles to go over, and then also, which are not insurmountable. We work with the FAA all the time, obviously, that we think it's doable if we get the cooperation of the local community. Funny story, we did a show at Lakehurst, New Jersey with the Navy, and they had one problem. There was a guy that lived in a cranberry bog. It was crazy, but it was in the aerobatic box. So we figured out a way to give him some VIP seating and make him feel special for the day and for the weekend, and solve that problem pretty easily. So we have some solutions that we can fix the problems that we're encountering or perceived problems. But nonetheless, we are excited about it, and would encourage you folks to capture the excitement in the community about it. And because we want to bring a world-class event to your town, and that's the thing. We're not going to do just a basic air show. We want to bring a world-class event, put it on the calendar for every 2 years, because that would be probably the best thing for your market, or 3 years, every 3 years, and then build on that community excitement about it, and bring a lot of people into town and generate a lot of tax revenues for the county and the town. So thanks for the opportunity to talk with you folks. And airshownetwork.com is my company's website. Feel free, I sent you that brochure. Hopefully you can take a look at that, give you an idea. we are the top company doing this in the world, basically. And we only do things top notch. So you can expect the best from us if you are so inclined to go forward with the idea. And we're still doing some spade work. Come back to you with hopefully a plan that we think is achievable and financially viable. And if we can do that, we'll meet again down the road. But I appreciate the time to kind of, and Robin, for introducing me to you folks, because I think it could be amazing thing for the county and for the communities nearby. Any questions for me?
Jim, just one point before, we're actually aiming earlier in the year, so May, June, July, I think that's okay, right, Jim? You mentioned that, just so we're far
Yes.
away from Balloon Fest, that we're not cannibalizing their crowds as well.
Right, yes, I think May, June, probably June or July would be more ideal. May is still a little fringe on the weather, as you already know, because you live there. I would say July would be optimum. And that also worked with the jet team schedules. When we do a show in Maine, it's usually August, but we can slide into July. July, believe it or not, is somewhat of a slow time for air shows, which is kind of crazy. So we think we can negotiate and get a team to come out to your neck of the woods and put on a great show. We just have a little spade work to do before that, but July is when we need to apply. And so we have some time, but as I get older, things go by faster. So, as everybody knows that, but I think it could be great. Again, the financial risk is minimal. And the upside is great. And the community benefits, I think, are substantial. We did a show in Melbourne, Florida, and the Tourism Bureau figured out that our economic impact was close to $12 million on that area. So, yeah. So, any questions from anyone?
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you for getting up very early there, making this position. I personally think this is a great idea, but just curious, two things. Number one, you say the houses within the aerobatic box, talk about cooperation of those homeowners. Just maybe you can tell me what's that cooperation entail? Is it temporarily relocating those people or?
Yeah, it's during the jet demonstration window, which is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for probably 4 hours. So what we have done in the past is accommodate them as to be our guests at the air show, or we put them up in a hotel for the weekend. And so we're not just we're not shaking a cup at anybody. We're trying to help out and make sure that they understand that without them, we can't do a show.
Right.
and take care of them in that some way. We typically don't pay them money. We accommodate them to the show or to other accommodations for them for that weekend, which could be a hotel in town, something like that.
Just curious. The other thing, I have some experience, traffic control. Is that left up totally to the county?
No. The traffic control plan will be designed by our company in conjunction with your, your law enforcement folks and also the state police too. But the basic design we would come up with we have a professional parking person, traffic planner that's on retainer with our company that would come in and give you an overall, okay, here's what I'm thinking, here's what we need to do. At that point, we bring in the law enforcement folks and say, is this possible? Can we do this? And so those are the kind of deep digs we need to do to see if this is viable. And we're certainly willing to invest money into making that happen. See if, before we want to come back to you only if it's a viable proposition.
I don't know if you were involved about 5 years ago in Massachusetts, there was an air show. It was in late July, early August. And the traffic on the Massachusetts Turnpike was horrendous. And I'm being kind when I say horrendous. I was in there. I vacation on Cape Cod every year, and I happened to be going home that Sunday of that air show. I'm not condemning the air show in any way, but somebody didn't do their homework, and that traffic was backed up for miles and miles for hours. And I mean,
You're talking about Westfield?
yes,
Yeah. We've previously done the show on Cape Cod at Otis.
Yeah.
It was awful. That was not our show. Thank goodness. But that's unacceptable. And I agree with you.
yeah,
What we have to do, see what they did, that was a free show. That was a military show, which was free. And what we've done, and particularly because of COVID, what we've done is we've come up with a model plan that will limit capacity. So you have to buy a ticket in advance. There's no tickets at the gate. So we understand how many people can come. And when we hit a limit, that's it. And we did that down in Nashville, primarily because of COVID. It was 2021, right after COVID. And we came up with this design to limit capacity. And so to your point, Sarah, it's a very good point, because you could overwhelm the place if you're not careful. And that's how we plan to mitigate that issue, by controlling capacity.
we have an annual hot air balloon festival, which generates, I don't know how many people roughly.
Over the whole entire weekend, probably upwards of 20,000.
Yeah. And I think that between the sheriff's office and other entities, they do a good job of controlling the flow. It's the flow of the traffic. It's not necessarily the parking or anything else, but it's the movement of traffic. That air show that I'm referring to in Cape Cod, the only saving grace was the Mass Pike was literally a parking lot. You didn't go anywhere for quite a while, but I had a good seat to the air show. So,
And you didn't have to pay for it. That was good. Yeah, that was nice.
in all seriousness, we appreciate your time and your presentation. Is there anyone else? Supervisor Stroud?
Well, I was a pilot and I was on the Civil Air Patrol, second lieutenant. And I volunteered for an air show that we had here at Warren County. And I think I'm fighting for the date. It was the early 80s.
Oh, yeah,
And it was huge success.
Yep.
I'd love to see another air show.
absolutely. Yeah, I think we're all pretty much in favor of this. We just, this is very preliminary. And again, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again. Superintendent Hajos.
So Jim, just a quick kind of question. So to get this plan together, how long? So we can bring something back in front of committee. How long will it take you to kind of put this plan together? The next couple months?
Yes, because we want to be in a position to submit something to the jet teams on July 1st. So the goal would be and then of course I'd like to come out to the Balloon Fest just to see how that operation works too. And I
Yeah.
believe that's in September, Robin, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I would say within the next 3 months, we would come up with a plan for you folks, come up with a proposal. And then it's contingent on us getting some cooperation from the neighborhood. I think we have 18 homes. Was that right, Robin, that we have
Officers.
aerobatic parks? Okay. If we're gonna do a show, we want to do a good show and a world-class event. That's all we do. And if we can't make that happen, we will tell you that. And it's not economically feasible to do it, or it's not feasible to do it because of logistics or safety issues because of the FAA not approving our plan. So we want a safe and successful air show, not overrun the community, and make sure it's economically viable. So everybody wins on the deal. You know, I'm not even sure you have enough hotels in town to accommodate. But there's a lot of things to look into. All I'm saying is that the reason Robin and I met was because of a good friend that introduced me to them. And he knows what we're capable of doing. And rest assured that if we do something with you folks, it'll be world class. Nothing short of that.
Jim, thank you.
Anyone else?
Dan, just a quick,
Yes,
just
Supervisor Dross.
yeah, just curious. Are our runways sufficient for the need or anything have to be done in advance?
I believe they're probably sufficient.
I can take that. They're sufficient. For our jet teams, we will not be basing the jets out of our airport. They'll be out of the airport and then fly into the acrobatic box. But we will not have to do any accommodation for our existing facility.
Good question.
Yep.
Anyone else?
On the runway.
If not, thank you again, and we look forward to continuing this discussion, and hopefully it comes to fruition.
Yes, I do too. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
We'll meet down the road. Okay.
Okay, very good. Referrals, pending items.
Yeah, the last thing we had on there was the referral pending for the Adirondack Balloon Fest, as far as whether or not we take donations or we move to OCTAX. I think the discussion is that we are moving to applying for OCTAX funding. I brought my figures. I still think we're waiting for figures from the sheriff's office as to the amount of cost it is to them during that time frame. But I think it's last I knew we were going for OCTAC, but unless that's changed or Supervisor McGowan like that, anything, but I think that's what we're going to do is we're going to apply for OCTAX to cover the overtime cost.
All right, well, we'll keep this on here and we'll look into it again at the next meeting. That it? Okay, thank you, Mr. Matt.
Thank you so much.
Robin.
Good seeing you again, my friend.
Next up. Buildings and grounds agenda. No action agenda, new business items. I forgot to offer privilege of the floor for the airport agenda. Sorry about that. Under discussion items, we have the work order request program, fleet car request program, countryside adult home update, Joseph Warren museum update, regional morgue information update. We'll begin with the work order request program.
Work order request program, we are at 3,131 work orders currently entered and done. Fleet car request program, we are at 1,563 car requests signed out.
Great. Working well.
Very well.
Excellent. Countryside adult home update.
Okay, so last committee meeting, I discussed that there would most likely be a change order coming or an increase to the project. And this was due to, again, when the original work was designed based on the Beardsley report, the engineer's estimate came in somewhere about 2 million. We had since from that point on approved upwards of 4.6 million. The thing that was not updated from that 4.6 million was what more inspection would be involved with our consulting engineering firm. So I'm going to kind of go down through this list as quick as I can, but I want to make sure that, you know, everyone's aware of what's going on at Countryside at this time. As of 2/8, all abatement and demolition work was completed. See the The contracts for general construction were $2.23 million for Bass Hatfield. 1.48 for T. McElliott, which was our mechanical. Electrical was about 367,000, and our plumbing was about 182,000. And then, of course, the construction inspection was 144,000. We have had some minor, and I say minor compared to the size of the contract, change orders. We had one with the general contractor for basically the control or the alarm panel over there. The alarm panel, when they got into tying into it, is pretty antiquated, so it's definitely going to need some updating. We also had a change order from the mechanical contractor, which is to our credit, that there was some change of the HVAC equipment that saved us approximately $17,000 with that contract. The electrical contractor, and let me go back, the general contractor had an increase of about 77,000, and that was to do with some treatments, some wainscoting, some removed rotted metal and such framing that they found in the walls when they did the demo. The electrical contractor was the one with the alarm system, and that turned out to be about $56,000. And then
So Bass Hatfield is the GC,
the GC, yeah.
the mechanical is.
Mechanical is McElligott, I'm sorry.
Right.
And then Stilson Electric is the electrical, and Hamilton Plumbing is the plumbing contract.
Thank you.
Plumbing contract, there was a change order of about $3,200. And it was just to relocate some sprinkler heads and to add a couple new sprinkler heads. And then, of course, there was the CI work for about $158,000. So with the allowances that are in the contract for all the contractors, we had assumed that there was going to be about a $250,000 change order with all these added together, but we feel right now that an increase to the contract of about $215,000 is all we're going to need, and that gives us a little cushion. And that's, again, we could see a savings in the end with some of the allowances in the contract. But right now, I guess I haven't put a resolution together yet because I want to discuss it in committee. I'm most likely going to need about $250,000 more above and beyond the existing contract to finish this, basically to finish this contract off. And again, I'm saying 215 now with the allowances and whatever else, if we don't use them, that number may eventually come down that we didn't need it all.
But what's the percentage complete here?
Right now, we're with the wing that they're in now, and all the demo work complete and the abatement complete, and then the construction going on there. And I would say probably in that wing alone, they're 60%, probably 60% complete in that wing. They'll finalize that wing and then they'll we'll open that wing up, and then they'll jump over to the next wing.
And how many wings?
Two.
So they complete this one, then move to the
To
next.
the next.
Thank you. Any questions? Supervisor McGowan?
So right now, we're at about a $215,000 overrun for
Not over.
wing, well,
Change.
change orders.
Yep.
And we're only in wing one.
The majority of that, again, as I talked about last committee meeting, was the CI construction inspection work. When Clough Harbor or CHA had originally submitted for their construction inspection, it was based off the engineer's estimate at the beginning of the project, which was $2 million, and we're at $4.6 million. So 158,000 of that, give or take, is theirs.
I'm in the wrong business.
Any other questions? Proceed.
So I guess what I would look to, and I talked to our budget officer about this a little bit. I know we don't have funding and contingency for this. And Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, we would probably do for the fund balance to cover this cost.
Yes.
Okay, so
So I guess at this point, maybe we could make a resolution to increase the capital project for that $250,000 and the money will come from the fund balance. I don't have the resolution in front of you, but I wanted to have the discussion first.
Okay, so we'll get the resolution together and bring it to the next meeting.
We can do it at this meeting right now, and then I will submit it to Amanda, so it'll be ready for the board meeting.
Well, it's gotta go to finance and then finance would
Right, to
actually make
finance
the
next,
ultimate
too.
decision
Yep.
on where the money.
Well, I mean, you commence a $4 million project like we did, and then you run into these things, they have to be dealt with. You can't stop the project. That just costs you that much more money to stop the project. Especially rehab projects, you tear into a wall, you think you know what's there, but you don't always know what's there. Because the drawings you have may not be correct as built, things
Well,
are
things
done.
deteriorate over time.
Yeah,
You don't see-
I mean, I've yet to be involved in a major rehab project where, everything went lickety split. On occasion, but not usually.
I've been involved in a lot of them.
And again, right now we're, as of now, we're probably a little less than 5% of the total project, which I think on a project of this scale and rehab is, not to mention the fact that our superintendent is led us through some very large projects, not the least of which was the jail over here, and did that successfully, even clerked the project for us. So we have a very experienced team representing us on the project. So I have confidence that what's in front of us needs to happen, and we need to, as owners, we need to bear the cost of it.
Very good. Thank you. Superintendent Adrian.
I'll just add on and thank you, Ron. Just to use that as an example, the court facility, when we built it was a brand new facility. 27 change orders, all said and done at the end. And with the allowances that we had in the contract, I kept that under budget by $30,000. And that was a $11 million contract. $30,000 is a lot of money, but there was still savings. And again, with this, we're not through the project yet, and there's enough money, I think, in the allowances that all said and done at the end, we may have money to give back. But I just want to be prepared right now, is currently this is what we need. And you're right, it's a 40-plus-year-old facility. And everything in there is 40+ years old. So it's, they open up a wall and see something that they didn't expect. That's why we're running into some of these problems. And that was the alarm panel. They expected they could tie into this system without any issues, and come to find out, once we got in there, it's a mess. It's a bird's nest in there. So it's time for us, and especially since we're doing all this work to clean it up.
But didn't the design professional look at that
They did.
initially?
They did, and believe me, we've already, Clough's original CA work and extra work that they gave us was somewhere in the 200,000s, and we knocked them down to 150,000.
Yeah.
158. So we took that into account and said that there's parts of this, and Ron knows, because I had to do this with the courts. We put the onus back on them, and they stepped up to cover some of their mistakes, but it's not all their mistakes. Again, as you, and Dan, you know this, you get into a facility, and sometimes you don't know what you're going to expect.
Well, I agree with that, but in this instance, having a fire control panel, you really ought to know what you're dealing with.
Yep.
Again, you're talking, I've been through this
Yep.
many times. I'm not gonna go there. The construction inspection, we shouldn't expect that to increase much, if any. The only thing that will increase that, in my mind, is if the project for some reason was extended a significant period of time, and we had to have someone there. And even in that case, at the point the project is at, we may be able to cut back instead of increasing that budget. We may be able to still get it done. So my point is, we shouldn't look to have a big increase in that phase of the project.
Beyond this.
Right.
Yes, beyond this, that's correct.
And that was a large part of this increase. So my point is, that should be.
Yeah, that should be fine. And again, we keep them in check, and I'll tell you from my own experience, because I work for consulting firms, is there's that tendency that they have a construction support back at their main office, and then they have somebody out in the field, and then that person out in the field is working with the contractor, and typically, on most road and bridge projects I ever worked on, I made those decisions in the field, so it would never have to go back to the office. Problem is, if in the building's a little bit different, if it goes from the construction inspection, his time is put into it, then it goes to the construction support in the main office of a consulting firm, that the person gets their time on it, and then he distributes it to whatever
The designers.
specialties, whether it's electrical, plumbing, and then their time's put on it. So that's what we're keeping in check with CHA currently.
But that would only occur if there was redesign involved. If you run into something in the field, your man, woman in the field goes back to the office, and those designers, et cetera, engineers, designers, architects have to get involved. It's usually because something
Rework.
is
So, yep.
askew in the design. Anyway,
And that's what we're keeping in check with them right now.
okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any other comments?
We're not going to stop the project. We have to keep the project going. And so we need to separate the project from what true ups need to take place, if that's the correct term. What true ups need to take place with our consultants at the appropriate point in time. It sounds like that process has already commenced, and some things have already been done. But I mean, in terms of the project itself, I would make the motion that we adjust the budget as recommended and keep moving forward, because what's the alternative until this
Well,
contract?
that's all well and good. My point is, you don't want to be paying for something that you shouldn't have to pay for.
No, I'm
Someone else's screw up.
I'm not, but I think that has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Apart from
That's-
the project,
To Mr. Hajos and company.
which is, I think is what he's saying here today, Mr. Chairman. So
Okay, very good. Thank you. So go ahead, please.
So the motion that you need would be to appropriate the $250,000 from unappropriated surplus to the countryside capital project to increase the capital project accordingly.
Very good. You all heard that?
I would make that motion.
Mr. Conover and Mr. Straugh in the second. Any discussion? Now I'll call up
Did you say 250 or 215?
15.
215.
Aaron's getting bad.
I'm sitting up here and I had to say,
Or is that selective?
okay, we have a motion discussion. For discussion, I'll call a question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
The next item under discussion item is the Joseph Warren Museum. As you all know, last month I came, we got the proposal from Labella to advance phase one of the Joseph Warren Museum. I think it came in at 149,000. I've since gone back to them and tweaked the proposal. I think we're down to 140 now, plus or minus. We have currently in a capital project, $62,000. We transferred $50,000 out of my contracts that was pegged for that into this capital project. And then we had 12,000 and change left over from last year that we're moving into that capital project. The discussion we had with the players, which would be the museum staff, museum director, was that they were going to seek ARPA funding for the remainder of the amount to cover the cost of the proposal to get through phase one. This will get them through design. Eventually, they'll have to look for whether it be OCTAX money or something else for construction, but this will get them to the design stage. So Scott spoke with Terry Rogers this morning, who left as the executive director, but now she's back as co-president of the society. They are submitting an application for $80,000 to ARPA beginning of next Monday.
Yep.
Monday. So when the next ARPA meeting comes up, and I know there is still some funding in ARPA, But when the next ARPA meeting comes up, they will present and we'll be there with them to present and what the proposals for.
Thank you. Regional morgue,
And then, do you want to hit on this? You want me?
you're on a roll.
Okay. So last week, we had a meeting regarding the regional morgue. We had a couple of the coroners, we had Terry Como, we had Dr. Sikoriga, and we discussed kind of the steps moving forward to get a regional morgue in our area. I'm sorry, we had Brad there too. I didn't mention your name, I apologize.
Seems to be missing on everything.
And the discussion, a couple things went on. We'll pass out the meeting minutes. They're just about wrapped up. And we'll get them out to everybody so they can see all the items that we discussed. But the bottom line is we said basically the first decision that has to be made here at the county level is what is the region? What would this region cover for this regional morgue? Dr. Sikoriga had rattled off, probably 3 or 4 different counties that he thinks would definitely jump on board with us. And there was a few other ones that he would say that would most likely bring some of their autopsies and such here. Not all of them, maybe a certain percentage of them. So I think the counties included Warren and Washington, of course, Saratoga County, Clinton County. I think it was about 40 to 50% from Clinton County, Essex, Hamilton, and then Rensselaer County, because currently Rensselaer County is taking all their autopsies to Dutchess County. And we discussed about, what Rensselaer County has to do. They actually have to take the bodies down to Dutchess County, sit there with the bodies, wait for them to go through the process, and then to bring the bodies back up here to a funeral, to go to the funeral directors of the funeral parlors. So that was the first part of the discussion was, hey, what is the region? And based off what we believe the region is, then I think it would be Chairman Garrity and our county administrator is to sit down, and it may be, I saw that the inter-county meeting in March or April is in Washington.
There's one down in, there's a
Saratoga.
combined one at NISAC next week,
Okay,
Wednesday.
I know there's one coming up for Washington County as well, and Washington County would be in.
That's the inter-county Adirondack. Yeah, we could do it there too.
So that may be a discussion to see how many other regions are willing to, or how many other counties are willing to come on board with us. But I think the first scenario is we have to know that first. From that, and a commitment from them, then we can move forward with the rest of it. So we took the entire group that was here for the meeting and to look at the jail facility, since it's demoed and cleaned up now. And Dr. Sikoriga said this would be the ideal facility to be used. Although Terry, I think, took him for a ride up to where our old former WIC building was, and he thought that would be even more ideal, the spot to use up there, but that would be building something new. The other sticking point for this regional morgue is getting staff here, and mainly a doctor, a pathologist, for maybe a forensic pathologist. Dr. Sikoriga believed that's the second hill to climb. Besides finding out what the region is going to entail, is to getting somebody to come here. His experience is you're not going to get somebody to come here for less than $200,000 a year. Something we have to look at, and that's one person as the forensic pathologist. I think he also discussed, based on if the region, this entire region that he has kind of laid out for us would be involved, that we would most likely need another one that would be part-time. Not to mention probably a staff of 3 or 4 others as part of this facility.
Need a clerk and some other
record keeping, so on and so forth. So the discussions are moving forward, but I think the next step, again, would be with the county administrator, chairman of the board, possibly Supervisor Bruno McGowan, is to really discuss or nail down what the other counties are going to be that are gonna make up this region.
Right, it's basically a marketing study, feasibility study. Before you go anywhere, you want to know who the participants are or will be, and is it feasible to proceed spending some money to develop this regional morgue. I personally think it's a great thing. It's probably not going to be, I'll tell you right up front, it's not going to be a moneymaker, but it would be a great facility for Warren County and the region. But we'll get into that later. But this is the beginning phase, beginning steps to determine if it's even feasible to do this, right? Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, since that meeting, I've been doing some thinking, and I also brought it up, one of the other options, another option we can do is looking over, looking into the Vermont side close to our border. Because they bring everything up to Burlington and bringing in a Vermont doctor, as per diem. But really, the main thing I was saying is when we talk in these counties, once we have a marketing strategy, it's a buy-in, Would these other counties be willing to help with the cost of doing that? Because overall,
That's what we have to do. That's part of this. Can't go anywhere without that.
all right, yeah, well, that's maybe my hearing's going bad too. But I just, it's a buy-in. Because overall, it's gonna be a cost to all these, cost savings
That's
to all
right.
these counties, and that's how, I originally kind of thought of the whole deal, is sitting at these meetings and seeing how the costs have just jumped overnight and facilities closing, so thank you.
So, and Dan had mentioned it, this is never gonna be it's not a moneymaker, it's a need. And it's a need that the region does have. As I said, Rensselaer goes to Dutchess County. I think Clinton takes some of theirs to Plattsburgh, and they just don't have the staff. In fact, they don't have a certified pathologist there, according to Dr. Sigarica. Just a pathologist. He's not a certified. So, but I think the hard part, or the first step, and Supervisor McGowan kind of touched on it, is one, we need a firm commitment. I don't know if that's a resolution passed at those counties that would participate. That would be the first thing. And then the second step of that would be, how much are they willing to contribute to get this off the ground?
Mr. Chairman.
The dollars and cents need to be figured out before you even go out to any of these counties. Because you can't go in there and say, hey, do you want to buy in, without giving them an idea of how much it costs, what they expect it cost potentially could be to it. Because, they all may say, oh yeah, we'd like to support you, until you put a dollar number in front of them. And then
You're absolutely right.
so we just need to please, somebody needs to do the accounting part of
To
it.
that end, we've discussed doing, and I think you started some preliminary plans. You need to be able to show people the outlay, a floor plan, even if it's rudimentary, whatever, and say, and have a preliminary estimate of cost. Supervisor Connell.
Sure.
And then Supervisor Stroud.
We discussed this at the last meeting, and I think that, there's certain information we have to have early on. The cost benefit to the respective counties, or what we estimate the cost benefit might be, the actual cost of the program, whatever that program is, so that and some basic analysis from long range. And so, my recommendation would be to have some discussion with the involved parties, to particularly New York State Department of Health, I think, to put together a request for proposals from the appropriate companies that do this kind of work, to do that for us. And I don't know that it would necessarily involve a huge expense here, but I think that given the need and the magnitude of what this initiative is going to involve, I think that that is really what's required here. Now, how we pay for that, we can have, we can, once we know what something like that might cost, and we can talk about, who might want to participate and pay, if anyone. We may want to initiate that on our own anyway, simply based upon our own need.
Let me just interject. There are architectural firms out there that have done this sort of work, who know who have a pretty good handle on the cost of the actual fit up. In other words, the walls, et cetera, the equipment, you can need some refrigeration, that sort of thing. So to your point, we would get them involved and have them do a layout, floor planning, space planning, and a cost estimate based on their experience.
See, I would say, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I would say yes. I think the some long-range project assessment on cost would be necessary information to have.
Absolutely.
But there are other things that we need to have in addition to that. What the cost benefit would be to Warren County, what the cost benefit would be to any of the other counties that would, so it's going to take somebody delving into their numbers and working with their people to come back and say, well, it's costing us X today in today's dollar, with the understanding that finding the personnel and paying for that type of personnel by yourself may not be a possible approach going forward. In other words, that we may have to have a consortium of counties.
Oh, for sure.
All of those products, if I could call them products, all of that information that's going to be needed to take the next step should be in that RFP. Now, we don't need to be too, we can spend a lot of time on this, or we can actually go out and talk to people that do this for a living to actually put the RFP together for us. And then go out with that RFP, which would include all of the products that are going to be needed for the decision makers here in this county and the other counties to make an intelligent decision. So I think what's being discussed here. So I think and I don't think we should even attempt to try to do that with our existing staff. I think I think they can help facilitate, they can help guide the process.
We'll rely on Superintendent Hajos and his people to ferret out the entities that can produce what we need, i.e. floor plans, cost estimate, that sort of thing, right?
So I could add on to that. When we started this discussion, I had reached out to our term agreement consultants that we have on board. As you all know, we have 5 that we use. Out of the 5, 3 of them said, no, we don't do anything with a morgue. We've done some hospital work, and the other 2 has actually had morgue experience. One more so than the other, and they just finished doing a morgue out in Rochester. So they are familiar with this type of work. So as we discussed in the meeting, I could very quickly put a kind of a scope of work together for either one of those firms and ask them to submit to me kind of a letter of authorization with task and cost to put some conceptual plans, preliminary estimates and such together. And I could bring that back to committee because there's going to be a cost then, of course, to do the work. Then that would provide us, and again, Ron, I don't know that they have all the experience of the cost benefit, but that's something I can talk to them about. One of the things that we did discuss in the meeting, and you 2 can jump on and tell me whether I'm wrong or right. Dr. Sigarica said most of the cost right now related to an autopsy is somewhere in the range of about $5,000.
Right.
He said for our facility, we could probably be in the $3,000 to $4,000 range, and we would be fine. Depending on, again, the region that comes into our facility. If it's going to be Warren and Washington County, this makes no sense to do this whatsoever. And we'll
And it,
figure out something different. But if you get all these other counties kind of as a buy-in, then it would make sense for that cost. But yes, if the committee is willing to say, yes, go ahead, then I will reach out to our firm and have them put a task kind of, cost for the task going forward. And I can make it pretty, I don't know how far we want to, or what depth we want to get into it right now. I definitely want to see conceptual plans on the facility that we have. And I definitely wanted kind of a cost estimate. It's gonna be a ballpark.
plus or minus 20%.
Yeah, plus, yeah, and we can add a contingency on there, and for them to do that work, I don't know what the cost would be, but I can bring it back to committee and say, okay. Again, probably not something that I have in contracts. I could probably take it out of contracts for now and then kind of put something in there, our request money for something later on.
It's going to be incumbent upon all of these entities, counties, wherever, for them to determine their cost benefit, not us. They're going to need to take a look at it and say, yeah, this is, it's over here in Warren County, and we give them numbers as to construction, fit up, whatever. And then they will have to determine whether it's feasible for them to send bodies over here, whatever, for autopsies. But I'll let Mr. Strauss speak first.
Well, one source I talked to said this could be a moneymaker for us. There is a strong demand. But then, we talked about various arrangements. Do we do it alone? Do we do it with the other counties? Are we going to open it up to Vermont? All of these questions could be wrapped up into an RFP, sent out. We could get some proposals, review that, maybe even learn from that, because I usually do. And all these questions could be investigated as part of the feasibility study, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So, but to my mind, we ought to outline the RFP with the idea we're going to cast out the RFP in terms of doing a feasibility study. Not only would that give us something for us to jump off of to see if we want to venture ahead, but it would be also something to share with the counties. And here's what we understand. You typically had a need for 150 forensic examinations, and you had difficulty finding. So would you be,
Right.
they could
Exactly.
investigate the whole, every question that's been brought up right now.
And we want to furnish some with that. For those people to make an intelligent decision, we need preliminary plan and a preliminary cost estimate. When we send that RFP out, you need to include that. Otherwise, it's just going to go, well, maybe not. Supervisor Connell.
See, I'm not even sure sitting here today how best we should be organized to do this. We own a facility that we're a property owner, but the actual operating organization that would operate such a facility might be not a Warren County. And I think the question would, it seems to me, one of the important questions is, how do you organize yourself for success? And what are the options here? And, and that's the kind of information that I think you need to have to be able to have an intelligent discussion with the other counties as to, what our experts say would be the way to proceed. And as far as the other counties, yeah, they would make their own determination, but it would seem to me that we want to garner enough information so that we know.
We've had these discussions, and that's where out of that discussion came the possible salary to retain a forensic pathologist. We talk, staffing and that sort of thing. So I think we're not well down that road, but we have gone there, and that's the kind of thing. At this point, we see this as being a Warren County, correct me if I'm wrong, entity, staffed, etc. We even talked, does this forensic pathologist work for Warren County, or do we create some other entity to oversee the operation of this quote regional morgue. So we have gone down that road somewhat.
Yeah, and like I'm not sure, how this consortium is best structured, because they're going to be the need to assess costs.
Right.
Right? And those costs will change over time. So we're going to have some type of agreement on the organizational structure of this going forward. And all of that, it would seem to me that should involve that process that should clearly involve New York State Department of Health at a minimum. And
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're just,
they might even pay, given the need in the state, across the state, they might even help us with the cost of doing that.
So, again, I want to emphasize or say that I do have two firms currently that are on term agreement with us that I could reach out to, and they could work on putting this feasibility and cover all this basis. I would give them a scope of work, and then they would provide me a cost. Unless you want me to put out a separate RFP, ignore the term agreements that we have and just go out to, in general, and let somebody else take on this task as well. So I guess I'm asking the committee, would you like me to use the term agreements that I have in place now and at least two of the firms that have this experience? We could sit down and talk with them. I can certainly bring them in here, say next month, to kind of discuss their experience with the committee.
what's the pleasure of the committee?
I would like to see that, and I'd like them to actually I'd like to see the work plan. I'd like to see their work plan for taking this idea and moving it to the next
That's the scope of work.
step. And
for
because
that.
that's going to tell you how experienced they are in all of this. And that'll help us decide whether we should go with them or whether we should go outside to some other
Okay.
Agree.
some other entity. And I'd like them to actually come in and say, as we understand the challenge, this is how we see it breaking down and approaching, and this is what our costs would be, our fees would be to do the following. And
Their scope of work will tell you all of that. You want them to develop a scope of work based on our scope.
Based on our needs,
Our needs.
based on what we're looking.
We're going to give them a scope. They'll develop their own scope, which is more detailed, and we'll get that information.
And at that point, they would provide, any of the work that they have done anywhere else.
Right.
We can make the determination based on that. So from now until the next committee meeting, that's a month. So typically they want more than a couple of weeks to put a proposal together. I will, today and tomorrow, hopefully, maybe not, beginning of next week, I will put that scope of work together. I'm going to pass it out to the committee so that by the end of next week, if I do not hear from all of you as to if there's anything else that needs to be added, then I'll submit it to those two firms and then let them get something back and let them know that we would want them presenting on our March meeting. If that's good, but I would only say that I will try by Monday or Tuesday, have the scope of work out to the committee, and then if you have any comments back, great, I will add them. If not, then I will by next Friday or the following Monday, submit it to the firms to bring us back a proposal come March in their March committee meeting.
Committee okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So we'll proceed thusly. Okay. The next on referrals pending items is an update on work to convert I think we've already covered that somewhat, but the Joseph Warren Center. Anything to add
Nothing
on
else
that?
to add on. As I said, the Historical Society is submitting an ARP application. I hope anyone on the ARP committee will look highly upon it. I think it's well worth it. And again, they will look for tax eventually for construction when it is complete. Right now,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You need to consider that New York State is going to be looking to Warren County in a couple years, how many years? The 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. Right? To have done something here. This is Warren County. Joseph Warren played a big role in that. He was killed where at Bunker Hill. And so I think there's going to be some focus here. And we want to have, this probably wouldn't be completed by then, but it certainly would look good for Warren County to have something to present, say, hey, this is a Joseph Warren Center. Here's what we're gonna do with it.
So based on the schedule I have, they will be done with design by this fall. And we can go out to bid, and we're hoping by late 2024, very early 2025, that the house, which would be the museum for the Joseph Warren historical material, that'll be completed by 2025, and that will be for the 250th anniversary. So I think we can make it. And again, I hope the ARP committee would look in favor of giving the Historical Society $8,000 so that they can move forward with this project.
Supervisor Thomas, do you have anything to add? You're the chairman of the Joseph.
Yeah, I think it's doable. It's just money, you know, it's a matter of money. And I sit on the ARPA committee and I definitely push this for it.
Supervisor Stroud, anything to add?
No, there was a 250th commission meeting last night, organizational. I'm not on the commission, but I was asked to be there to help out. They're making good progress in the formation of this committee, which involves even at least one person that has connections to Washington County. Washington County is going to be doing their own thing too. And they're thinking of the title of the theme of where we're going to go. One of it is the Gateway for Independence, of which we played a significant role in that. If you want to start with the French and Indian War, because the revolution wouldn't have happened without the French and Indian War. And so many of the events played a role in the Revolutionary War in this valley and this area. And so it all looks good to highlight the Joseph Warren Center and everything else surrounding it, as you pointed out, moving forward. It's going to be exciting.
Good, excellent. Anyone else? Very good. We'll proceed with that.
I think the last thing we had on the referrals was, we're still waiting on our magnetometers. When the state gets their new ones, we're ready to install ours down at DMV.
So they're gonna donate their old ones to us. That's the
Correct.
understanding.
Yep. So as soon as,
Cheaper than removal.
so as soon as they get their new one, I mean, it's for us, it's plug and play. We have everything already done down at that end and ready to go. So we're just waiting for them to get their new ones in.
Great.
Awesome.
Anything else? Privilege of the floor, any public comment, any? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Stroud, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. All in favor?
Yeah.